In today's video, we have several topics to cover. First, we are going to start from a previous project and try to find a way to use that project for our current project. As you may remember from our previous videos, that's a very common method among engineers and programmers to save time and resources. Then, we are going to deal with an Arduino program coding directly without using block coding. And while we are doing that, we will learn how to use for loop code to repeat a task, and we go more in depth to use variables to optimize our coding.
So because I have that traffic light project, I can just go on the project on the setting part and duplicate that project to keep the original project safe and work only on duplicate project, just modify that for my purpose. When we run that project, there are three lights, red, orange, and green, and it's going from red to green and come back from green to red. So it's very similar to the project I'm going to do that, but I need more LEDs. And another thing is for traffic light, the time for switching from red to orange and orange to red, it's very long. So I just need to modify that numbers. For example, change the waiting time to 150 milliseconds. That was, for example, 5 seconds. Now I'm changing to 150 milliseconds. Now you see that it's scrolling very fast, probably too fast. So I can come back and change the code and increase the amount of waiting time from 150 to 250 milliseconds. And as you see, for this coding, I have to do every time, I have to go and do again and again. I mean, if I wanted to change a number, I have to do that for all of the part of the coding. If I have 8 different LEDs, I have to change it for all of them. Another issue here is that unfortunately, I have to set up all of the LEDs separately. So for example, if I have 8 LEDs, I have to code all of those. I have to set, for example, from number 10 to number 5. There is no other way. I have to use another part of the Tinkercad coding to fix that issue. By getting the idea from the traffic light, now I'm going to set up a new project. 6 LEDs in different colors and using number 10 to number 5. You can use different numbers. I set up based on each pins, just increasing or decreasing one number, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5. And this is the setup. As you see that I use the Arduino, I use breadboard because now there are 6 LEDs and managing those LEDs without breadboard is very difficult. So you see these exactly the same traffic lights, and all of them are based on the Blink projects. So part of the project is ready, but the coding is not. And I know that always is frustrating writing codes from scratch. But the good thing is we have access to that traffic lights coding. So we can just look at the coding in traffic lights and get some ideas and then use that coding and modify it and see which part of that coding is useful for us, which part of the coding we can get ideas, which part of the coding we need to completely write again. The second option on the code on Tinkercad circuits is block plus text. So that's wonderful because you can compare the blocks with the really Arduino coding, which the Arduino IDE, the software for Arduino, using that. So I'm just copy this part of the coding. So I go to Notepad and paste this code in Notepad and just start using that. Let's just spend some time and take a closer look to that coding and see what's happening here. We have 2 sections, setup and loop. And these are 2 major sections on any Arduino sketch, any program we run on Arduino. The official name is a sketch. So this is a sketch for running that traffic light. And this sketch, as you see, has two parts, setup and loop. Setup is the part when Arduino starts piece of coding. Whenever it starts, it doesn't matter if it's at the beginning of the running the program or anytime you refresh the program, it will start with setting up. Setting up means the definition of different things. For example, as you see here, this is one time we set up pin number 13, 8, and 4 as a digital output. They are turning on and off LEDs, so there are outputs. And pin mode is a specific name for that line of coding. So we cannot use pin mode for another purposes. This is the piece of code. And another part of the coding is loop. Loop is after setting up, doing something again and again and again, and this is the loop part. And as you see, we have another specific line of code. Digital write means on pin number 13, it should be high. So digital write is for turning on and off. So based on that, we just follow that pattern to make our program. As you remember that we have two issues. Every time I have to change the delay time, for example 150, 250, every time I have to do that. On coding, when you have to use one thing several times, it's better to use the variable. So I'm going to define a variable. I just put delay timer for that. You can pick anything you want. As long as you don't use those specific words Arduino use, like digital write or pin mode, that kind of things, you can use other words to name variable. So here I'm picking delay timer as a variable name and put 250. I'm just putting this in setup, but later you will see that I have to relocate it. The second variable I wanted to define is for pin number, because I have 6 different LEDs and each of them attached to a pin. I'm using another variable and I'm putting the name pin light as a name of the variable. For defining that variable, I'm using a new line of coding, and the name is for loop. So in this line, you see that, and I used word for, mentioning that, okay, I wanted to loop from number 5 to number 10. And each time, in each loop, it's getting one number more. So if you see that it's pin light plus plus, means the first time in this loop the number is 5, next time add one more, so it's 6, another time is 7, 8, 9, 10, and 10 is the last. And what's happening on each time in that loop, number 5 is the output, then number 6 is output, number 7 is output. And because it's in setup and it's running at the beginning, I will define all of the pins between 5 to 10, and all of them will be output. This is the time to modify the loop part. Like setup, we are going to use variable just to prevent using pin numbers again and again. So I'm just going to make the same coding like the setup part, but this time this loop is going to assign a digital write code. So using the same pattern, so again from 5 to 11, we are going to assign digital write for each pin, and every time in the loop the number is going up one time. Just to prevent any typing mistakes, I'm copy and paste the same coding and adding that. The first time when pin light number 5, by digital write putting in high, that means that pin has 5 voltage. So we are waiting for the time of delay. Instead of using a specific number like 250, I'm using the variable. So next time, if I change that variable, the delay time will be changed. And then after that, I wanted to turn it off. So I'm using the same line of coding, just change the high to low, and using delay for that time. So it's using the same pattern, you see. This is the loop for each pin, number 5, high and low, and then inside the loop it goes one number up. It continues until the end of pins, which is pin number 10. After reaching to pin number 10, we should come back. So this time I'm going to copy that coding again, but this time the for loop starts from 10 and goes to until 5, and each time in the loop it's going one number down. And after finishing that part, I'm going to delete the rest of the coding because we don't need that part of the coding anymore. Before loading this code inside the Tinkercad sketch and running the project, let's take a look and see if it needs any modification. That's totally okay. When you write coding, you make some mistakes. So it's always good to look inside the coding and make sure if everything okay. For example, curly bracket, when I copy and paste that curly bracket is extra, so I'm deleting that. And there are some semicolons missed. I have to add those, and now everything looks good. I'm going to copy this code and come back to Arduino circuit for that project to run this and see if it works properly or not. Okay, we are in the project, so I'm going to the text part and paste that coding I made on Notepad and start simulation. And it seems that the programs works properly. I see only a very small kind of mistake. If you see that at the end of the row, when it goes to number 10 or number 5, we have 2 times blinking. If we look at the code, for the first part, when it's up counting, it goes to number 10, and for the second part, for down counting, it's again starts with number 10. So number 10 and number 5 running 2 times in up counting and down counting. So I'm just going to change that coding, changing from 11 to 10 in up counting, and down counting taking out 5. So in up counting it goes from 5 to 9, and in down counting it goes from 10 to 4. So we don't have that kind of things. If you see that now, it works properly without any issue. And I can change the delay time from 250 to 100 to have scrolling much faster. So it seems that it's working properly without any issue.